the conversation of how do people process through grief, it's a messy recipe. There are many things that go into how individuals process grief. Some people don't process grief. Some people, it's such a horrifying endeavor that they just don't. They exist in a space of complete denial. You're never, ever, ever going to get back to the before, ever. And so there's not just the grieving of losing the person. There's the grieving of the what was, and then if it's untimely, right? So a suicide's always untimely. If it's untimely, especially if it's a young person, now we're talking about all of the what could have been that you also have to grieve. All of these layers compound, or I should say complicate, the grief processing experience in light of the traumatic grief space. Once upon a time, an individual asked me, do you know what the worst type of grief is? And I prepared myself like, oh boy, you know, and this was when I was deep in my personal grief experience with my spouse. And I said, no, what is the worst type of grief? You know, just kind of bracing myself for whatever, you know, annoying thing that they're going to offer me as the answer to something. And they said, your grief. Your grief is the worst grief. Grief is specialized. It's customized to the person experiencing it. Much like, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Since losing Mikey, my processing has truly been one that I've known that I really have to work on that process. It's so important to make sure that I'm moving forward. I'm never, ever going to move on from Mikey. I want to move forward and to make sure that I'm healthy in my processing of the pain of losing him.
I've got good days and bad days. You know, I've got days that are paralyzing in my heart because I miss my son so much. But I think the thing that is important for myself and for others is just to keep talking, keep opening up. Because sometimes you feel like you're a burden on people, you know, like, oh, you know, my friend is gonna, here I am again, you know. But the reality of it is people are okay with you talking to them. They really are okay with you talking to them.
I continue to be in a space at times of feeling that deep sense of loss. And yet I know that that's that moment where God again steps in for me. I've chosen to believe that He would carry me through this journey and He would carry me through the grief. And He truly has. And it is an ongoing process for me. But I can truly say that I feel His presence and I feel Him with me in this journey to where it's given me peace to move forward. It's given me hope in moving forward.
I have strong faith, and I really felt like God told me to move, get up, move, do something. And so I couldn't just sit still. I didn't know what to do.
The grief and trauma process groups that we started through Knowing You Matter, we started the very first one so that we could be part of it. And we did it for parents who have lost children to suicide. It was the most incredible thing that I have ever done, to connect with other people who have gone through the same thing and actually be able to process with people who have gone through the same thing.
I'm not a group guy. I'm not a guy that's gonna, you know, sit around in a group and, you know, but this was something really special. It was several weeks. I didn't miss a week. And I really was able to learn what was going on with me, not only emotionally, but physically. That there's a physicalness about this. There's something that's going on in your body when you're going through a trauma type grief. There's a piece missing in my heart. I don't know how that's ever going to get replaced. So it really does come down to managing what it is, like a wound. You know, it's managing this wound.
I've really made it a point to practice self-care. I've learned, never really embraced all that before, didn't feel like I was worth self-care. But since Mikey, I realize that I have to practice self-care.
From the very beginning, the first thing that happened is we received a basket of care items. And out of all of the activity that was going on our house, I kept coming back to this basket of care items. And they were very helpful. They were very cathartic. I mean, it was very good for me. Out of that birthed our Hope Bags. And that's been something that we've been giving out, and it's really been, well accepted in the community, and has been very, very helpful in people in their process.
To realize that I can enjoy life, even with everything that's happened.
One of the ways that I cope is knowing that I can help others. That the pain, this immense pain that I'm going through, is worth it as long as I'm helping other people and bring them along with me.
We're communicating with people to build that connection and in turn build that community. And it has just been huge to see that happen truly through our video work, telling people stories, through the process groups, through connecting even all the volunteers to build community together to do even this conference, truly.
I got tattooed and my first thing was a flower, and I remember just having that connection with nature too, and being like, man, I don't know what chose me to want to do that, but I felt like when I got the one flower, I wanted to have a full sleeve of flowers, and I realized that flowers die off so quickly and it makes me sad, so I want to keep them with me forever, and we'll just wilt together. And then I decided I was gonna quit, so then I quit drinking, and that was a big one because I knew I was gonna lose like half the social life and all that. I would be like, one beer and feel like I'm blacking out, but really it was just triggering off the depression and anxiety in my head so bad that it would just cross and put me in these blackout modes, but it was just really like a real bad derealization or being a disassociate, and I basically lived like that for like 10 years of my life and just being completely checked out. Even after I quit drinking, it still continued. And so that made me really like have to lock in to like what else is going on, I mean, I was already like still at this time covered in flowers, tattooed, like had a connection to nature, go on hikes. I was still my only time my heart really felt like I could feel a connection of being real and what's real and what's not real. Anytime I was back or like on my phone or like in a place with anxiety, like everything's just like shut off, shaky, sweaty palms gone. But whenever I'd go on a hike, like this is my safe place. I'm back again. This is like I know what's going on. I'm aware of things, but I was also fighting it the entire time too, deep inside, which was like the most worst thing you could do is just keep saying no, keep fighting it.
As I'm in this field of mental health, as I'm in grad school learning about how to treat people, how to help them heal, as I'm in therapy working on my own healing, as I'm at an agency educating people about this, I was not tending to that myself, and I was so resistant during that time period, and I held so much internal stigma. Here I am teaching and working with people and learning as much as I can in order to facilitate healing, and yet I don't think these things will help me. I felt like I was so uniquely broken. My brain was pulling every scenario about the world that could possibly be scary, and it was catastrophic. This will go wrong. I will not be able to handle it. I am not strong enough. Complete this. Get through this day at work. Complete your assignments. Get your degree. You can't stop no matter what. And even though I had people telling me, I think it's really important that you stop and take this time and actually, it's one thing to go to therapy once a week, but if you're just gritting through it all, I think I wasn't really doing as intensive work as I needed to do. So it was the pull of anxiety mixed in with the depressive thoughts, now taking that and sort of cycling them through that negative thought process. So what I was making sense of that anxiety was, you can't handle it. I had several therapists and basically my treatment team recognized where I was at, recognized how bad it really was getting. And they were like, I think you need something more intensive, like intensive treatment centers. I was just like, nope, that's not for me. I'm not that bad. I can do this. I just have to keep gritting through and whatever. It was so scary. Like, what does that even mean? I had never worked in those types of treatment centers. I had never been to one. And the thought of just like leaving everything in my life and going somewhere, a different location, a different setting.
I often felt alone a lot. And so I was always constantly trying to connect and bring myself into groups to feel like I belong somewhere. I grew up with my father here on the Central Coast, and my mom, she went on her own journey, and I really didn't have a mother presence, so I was always seeking that intimate relationship that mothers do often, give, that comforting and nurturing, and fathers are more like, giving you the right on, boy, let's go, how's this, how's that, and because my lifestyle of trying to, be a professional surfer and being all, hooked up in the party lifestyle of thinking like, this is what I got to do, this is what I need to do. More important, this is what I want to do, and this is what I need to do to just navigate through life, because it became such a normal process. When you're in a hopeless state of mind, it doesn't seem like there's anything you can do to make anything different. And whether it's feeling like you're loved, you belong, you're valued, or you're succeeding, or it's a constant focus on failure or not doing what you think you should be doing. The mind is a very powerful thing. It's very hard to think about positive things when things aren't going right. I was so miserable, and I had no idea that drinking and using had anything to do with it. I just thought it was a lifestyle of a direction I think needed to go. But getting married and having children and losing my family, it advanced my using is because I no longer cared. And when I didn't care is when I was making very poor decisions. And so a lot of the things that I do, not only in my surf school, but with Operation Surf, is really bring the aspect of value of care. I think the value of feeling like you care is what I was always seeking. I know my dad loved me, I know my mom loved me the best they could, but there's a lot of pain connected to that I suffered alone. And so my solutions were self-diagnosed. I was always, coming up with my own ways to fulfill my solution.
I looked at the 10 or so pill bottles on my nightstand, and I got on my phone and started Googling what the toxicity rates were for those medications to see how much of whatever I would have to take to go to sleep and not wake up. It came down to, do I text my therapist and then take the pills, or do I take the pills and then text my therapist? And I'm sitting here right now having this conversation because I texted my therapist. I just said, hey, can you talk? I'm not okay. And she texted right back and said, she asked, are you going to hurt yourself? And do you have a plan? I said, I think so. And she called and asked what was going on. And I told her exactly what was going on and what I was going through. And she said, okay, you've got a plan and you're going to hurt yourself. You need to call somebody to get the kids, and you need to go to the hospital. It's because of my involvement in veterans groups like Operation Surf and Emerging Vets and Players that I'm sitting here. The therapist that I texted is the therapist from Emerging Vets and Players. She makes herself available to members 24/7. So had it not been for that, I wouldn't be sitting here, because I wouldn't have had anybody that I felt like I could talk to and trust with that information to not judge me or to not, you're being selfish. This is a selfish thing. Because when it came down to it, it wasn't something that I thought about for months or weeks or even days. It wasn't an option until it was an option. All these times that I've told people I don't need help or that I don't want help, I'm taking away somebody's opportunity to experience joy through service, because I've done that my whole life. I know what that feels like because I've done it. I've helped people. As good as it feels to help somebody, anytime somebody wants to help, I should let them do that. It's learning to let people in and let go of things. And there's a humility that comes with that, because when we don't want help, that is our ego. We don't think we need it or we deserve it. You know, and thinking that we're not deserving of something is just as much, in my opinion, ego as saying, well, I don't need help, I can do this on my own. You know, sitting in this chair now, being in a position where I'm vet support, and I'm getting to serve the veterans that are out here through their first experience with Operation Surf. I know the joy of being a participant, and now I get to help them feel that same joy that I got to experience.
Some of the values and the traits that kept me on the same treadmill of disaster and negativity and failure and challenge, I have found that those same values and traits is what I use to stay on the right path. Like, instead of giving into the negative and the challenging and the hard to try to come out and make it easy, you know, I use those same values to walk on the path of success, to achieve things that aren't easy and take a lot of work. And it really showed me about perspective, of how choosing to look at things one way and making a decision to look at it differently can make or break an outcome. When I thought it was seemingly hopeless, I was actually keeping myself in the line of hope, and I didn't even know I was doing it. And so by keeping myself in a little bit of, of a little bit of a pattern and not going so far sideways, I got some clarity. And when I got clarity, I was able to hear a little bit of the message differently. And when I started hearing the words differently and started perceiving the message unaltered by my mind, I was able to take directions and start doing things. Is because that surrender that I think is really necessary. And it doesn't mean failure when I use the word surrender. It's just allowing myself to do something different, which is being teachable. And that's why I think education is so important for people like ourselves, to tell our stories about what we were doing and how we got there and what we do, you know, for our wellness.
The only good connections I ever had and the only good memories growing up were anything that dealt with plants, that dealt with nature, that dealt with going on a hike, getting away from people, getting away from my own head and my own thoughts, and starting to realize what the patterns are, what makes me feel alive, what makes me feel real, what makes me live again, what triggers off that spark of like light rather than what brings me to darkness again. And I tried my best to figure those patterns out, and I started with I quit drinking, tried to be on like a healthier route, I'm trying to just rewire everything. So I went back to getting my help, got put on my meds, so now I'm like fully diagnosed, bipolar 1, full depression, full anxiety. So the combination, when it all hits, is just like a disaster. It's an absolute hell, like 100 to 0 hurricane mode, can't get prepared for it. You know, it's like it's so mentally exhausting to go out and entertain or be the happy person that people see as like the light and trying to always be happy, positive guy, when really, like, boy, you don't know the battles I'm going through on the hourly, like literally through being like depressed to sad to happy to crying to, you know, don't know where my emotions are, like when you find yourself progressing in life, and progress is happiness. And so if you continue to grow and you find that change, you're like, dude, I did something new today, you feel great, like immediately. It's like you got to find a way to challenge yourself too, but you got to continue to grow. I live by grow or die is like everything to me. So it's like plants are the same way. I mean, they're not ever just stagnant. Like their roots are still going slowly no matter what. I mean, it's never just like, man, we're done. You know, like you might not even see it. There's slow growers. There's ones that are fast growers. We're the same way.
Putting that expectation on yourself that things are just going to be perfect forever. If you reach some goal, if you hit some mark, realizing that expectation is it's just too high, I think, and it's unrealistic. And I think the more you can come to terms with, and again, have grace for yourself for the low periods, the less you'll fight them and you'll work with them and through them. There were times I felt so good that if I felt myself slipping, I was like, no, this can't happen, I was doing so well, and just fight it. And I think over the years I've learned that the less resistance you give to it and the more you sort of surrender to the process, the more valuable it is. But that's still so hard today, I will say. There's so much talk about coping skills and, what can you do to really lean into the process instead of resist it? Because I think when you resist it, then you're ignoring what can I do to address it, because you're trying to ignore that there is something to address. And we talk about coping skills so much, and it's something I've learned about ever since really going on this mental health journey with myself and with other people is, what do you do when you're starting to suffer? How do you pull yourself out? What is needed? And how I wish I could tell myself at a younger age, like, go, just go, it's okay. It's not as scary as it sounds. But I suppose everything, it happened at the right time. And I think the unique part about that experience was able to, as scared as I was to leave everything behind, I felt like I have all these responsibilities to all these people and I can't fail and I can't, leave my dog, I can't leave my job, I can't do all these things. Leaving all these things behind was really what was so powerful in that moment, because I was able to really witness myself and explore myself in a way that, I really didn't have any external pressures. If this is good, I'd be here and maybe get here and then back down, and maybe up here and then back down, maybe here for a day, but then back down. And so I never really got to experience separation from depression until I got certain treatments. But having the opportunity to feel like, oh my gosh, I am not this person. I am not my thoughts. I am not this negativity. I actually have the capacity to be confident, to have high self-esteem.
There's hope in sharing someone's story who has processed in a way that's brought them healing and inspiration to move forward and to make a difference and to then come alongside somebody else.
As an organization, we're really into connection and connecting all of the organizations and resources together. Not being so isolated ourselves, and knowing that we're not going to be able to serve every single person in the community, but we can make connections to those that can. And in our little small part that we can serve, we're gonna serve at our best.